Greetings. I am Marina Orms here with you for the Astro Vibe for Sunday, November 13th. We have had a potent lunar eclipse earlier this week that we are still sort of processing and feeling and integrating and contemplating what it all means. So today I thought we would address some bigger picture of some of the astrology cycles and where we are and where we're heading. So astrology and evolution and how it all is helping us to live more authentically. So the key to living authentically and how this recent eclipse and all that's been going on recently can help us in that process of evolution and growth and living authentically, which is what we're here to do. And if you were here with me a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about the Age of Aquarius, and that's a really big picture cycle. So how that in that bigger picture sense, there's a shift going on from a place where we really truly did rely on a central authority figure, whether that is a king or a president or whoever it is. It's just like that structure that that organizes societies around there being somebody in charge, some leader who is not just a leader, but who is telling us how to do things. And the way that we and society and as human beings look to some central authority figure to tell us what to do, to keep us safe, to make sure everything's okay, and how what we need and on our individual the expression of our individual authenticity becomes less important in that kind of setup, in that kind of system. And who we are doesn't matter so much as the whole and how we all operate together, and the central authority figure having some sort of divine infusion of divine energy or support. And so you can go back and watch that video if you want to understand more about how that works. But what's happening now in the big picture is that we're shifting away from that model. So away from a more, dare we say, patriarchal model, hierarchical model, to more of a model where leadership comes from within. And that means that each of us as individuals needs to be a leader, needs to step into our leadership, into our power, into our strengths, and self-confidence, sense of self-confidence, and resting on our deeper inner truth and our authentic ways of being. So the power of how society operates in the big picture over time, long periods of time, it doesn't happen overnight, but over long periods of time, we are shifting away from that model where we trust and look to someone outside of ourselves to tell us what to do, to keep us safe, to make sure everything's running okay. And instead, it's up to us. It's up to us as individuals to be the leaders and to so grassroots movements and community-based problem solving, those are going to be the way that we operate in the future. And so we're in the process of shifting to that. And in that process, we as human beings have to discover what it means to live authentically and to be our true selves and to stand in self-confidence and leadership and find our strength. And that doesn't mean being perfect all the time. It in fact is more effective when we can be vulnerable, when we can be honest, when and that, that's part of the problem that we have right now in society is who can we trust, right? Can we really trust our leaders who are supposed to be taking care of us, and who we've trusted to make laws and enforce laws, and how is that going? So anyway, and there, there are lots of things we could talk about, but in that bigger picture, the idea is that we're making that shift, that transition, and that this week's lunar eclipse, which happened to be on the day of the midterm elections, was a potent moment, just due to the alignment of the planets. And when we have an eclipse, we have a special alignment, because the Earth, Moon, and Sun are all in the same plane. And that it's like putting a key in a door, that unlocks a flow of energy and potential healing. And so there's a possibility, there's a potential for shift when there is an eclipse. And this eclipse happened to have a lot of other alignments that were just really underlined it as being particularly potent. Very tight alignment with the planet Uranus, which is the planet of freedom, authenticity, being your own person, shake up, rebelling against the status quo. And then that planet being in a square with Saturn in Aquarius, where it's been since the end of 2020, which is our systems, our structures, our institutions being in this sign of, and this energy of shift, of change, of thinking about the future, of thinking more progressively, but also the potential for rebellion, for radicalization, for some of the status quo, some of the older ways of doing things, are systems and structures from the past being radicalized. And as we're seeing in politics right now. And one of the reasons that we're talking about politics is because the lunar eclipse was on the midterm day of the midterm elections, and it is just well, it affects all of us, for one thing, especially all of us who live in this country. But even if you don't live in this country, it's something that does have a bigger impact on the global situation in multiple different ways. But so this eclipse, not only did it have the alignment with Uranus and that T-square with Saturn, but also the Sun, Venus, and Mercury together in Scorpio, reflecting a deeper process of transformation, which is like a caterpillar going into a cocoon before it emerges as something completely new, right? And we can't know when we're that caterpillar dissolving inside that cocoon what it is we're going to become. And so there's that dynamic here as well. And so that's why this week's lunar eclipse, I talked about it last week in my video about being a turning point. And I think we really, while for astrologers, there's just no way we can actually know the future, right? We don't know exactly what will happen, but what we can say is here are the energy dynamics that are at play. And here are the themes that we're going to be seeing. And so for sure, we see some of the themes of progressive ideas, the future. What does the future look like? Big prominent theme in this election, now we know after the fact, is the Gen Z younger voters, right? And so that younger generation represents the future quite literally, and the things that they care about because it's their future, right? So climate change and reproductive freedoms and reproductive rights, and safety around guns and just safety in society. So they're the generation who grew up with active shooter drills in schools and whatnot. So anyway, they are the future. They represent progressive ideas, and they showed up for the first time in many ways, not the first time ever, but the first time in many ways to really get involved in the political process and have a voice about what they want for the future. Similarly with women and reproductive rights, bodily autonomy, and women's rights in general, how women are treated in society, how women are treated in patriarchy versus how women might be treated going into a future that is more based on a spirit of equality and equal, all of us being leaders, right, in that community sense where we're working together, and the power of women and women voting, the power of minorities voting, and that was talked about a lot. And you know, I think the word minority is kind of old school, but different, right, different groups which we don't you know, groups that have different perspectives, right? And so that might be racial, it might be cultural background, immigrants, so on and so forth. You know what I mean? It's the diversity of human beings. So inclusiveness of diversity is part of where we're heading in the future. And that was one of the issues, right, is how we are going to, as a society, address racism, address equality, affirmative action, women's rights, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so in the bigger picture, this moment, this turning point moment is saying, okay, you know, here is what the future is going to look like. And we had a choice, right? We had a choice about whether we would return to some of the oppressive feelings of the past, the more patriarchal approaches, the hierarchy, the ways that individual human beings are devalued, especially people of diverse backgrounds and orientations, right? LGBTQ and all that. And so we had this like decision point to make. And there are factions outside of us that are reflective of a resistance to change. And so the natural course of human evolution is to change in these directions that look toward the future and have these more progressive values that I've been talking about. But as we move to the future, we have to overcome the baggage of the past. And so that shows up for us in terms of the resistance that we see, the conservative backlash, the conservative drive for authoritarianism and control, because that is the energy of patriarchy not wanting to die. But even though it's inevitable, there are these forces that say, you know, let's cling to the past, the good old days, and some slogans I won't repeat, but going back to the past, going back to the way things were. We liked it the way it was. We liked it when women were silent. We liked it when different racial groups were silent. We liked it when LGBTQ people were in the closet. Like, let's just have it that way again. And that's the backlash. That's the external resistance that is that is there for us to you know, that it's that pressure to evolve. And so we have to evolve to respond. In our consciousness has to evolve to respond to that resistance. Does that make sense? So the resistance is coming from the outside world, and astrologically we would see this as a pressure for us to become more authentic, to be more effective, to be more creative, better problem solvers. How are we going to do this thing of creating the future that we envision? What is that going to look like? And we're already so much further than we were 10 years ago and 20 years before that. But also we have this pressure that's trying to push us back. So we saw in this election, we saw the pressure to evolve pushing us to evolve, and the response to throw the predictions. Well, there are different theories and opinions about how the polls came about and why they came about and so on. I don't want to go into all that, but I do want to say that there has been an evolutionary response to an evolutionary pressure. And so that's good, right? We're responding, we're shifting that consciousness. I was talking before about how we need to shift the consciousness in the collective. I think this was a week ago when I was talking about this. We need to shift the consciousness in the collective. And so the mainstream consciousness, and this is definitely a turning point in that direction, moving in that direction. And I, at the point I'm recording this, we still don't know for sure. We don't have the outcome of all the elections, and we don't know for sure who's going to hold the House and the Senate. But what we do know is that there was an evolutionary response to an evolutionary pressure. And the other thing I want to say is that that pressure and that response shows up inside of us as well. So it shows up in terms of our own, the things that we're dealing with, working through on a personal level. So whether it is relationship issues for you, whether it's something happening in your family, whether it's something going on at work, whether it is something about you and your creative expression, whatever the themes and challenges are of your particular life, and what you're dealing with in your world, that is your version of this evolutionary pressure. So as you step up to shift your consciousness, open your heart, learn how to be more fully yourself, more authentic, standing in self-trust, in being effective in your relationships, and more loving and present in your relationships, in your work, in your creative work, all that. As you do that, you are responding to the evolutionary pressure, and you're doing that internally in a way that supports this bigger collective shift. So I'm just trying to make that point, that we have the evolutionary pressure from the outside in the, the things that we see in the news and the political situation and the things that we're responding to, but also it's happening internally inside for us. And it goes on, right? That it certainly isn't over. We are still in it. There is much work to do. And so this is a perfect time to reflect on your life, how you want to be involved in doing your part to shape the world, to shape and help a better world to come into being. And so in your corner of the world, what is that? Is it working in your community? Is it something that you're already doing in your job or your work life? Is there anything that you need to reflect on at this time about your role in this bigger evolutionary process? And ultimately it does come down to self-trust, because you are that leader. You are the one standing in the leadership that is going to shape the world going forward. And who knows, maybe you're going to be the source of a solution to a problem that we're still trying to figure out. Or maybe you're going to be part of working with other people to create a solution to a problem that we haven't figured out yet. So, and now there's a big picture of shifting from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius, but there's also the shift of the planet Pluto. Pluto is you know, it's way out there in our solar system. It's way at the edge of our, you know, how we define the solar system. It's a planet that takes the longest of the ones that we look at in astrology to go around the sun and to go around the zodiac. So it has a 246, I think, year cycle, and it stays in a sign for 15 to 20 years. It varies based on, it has an elliptical orbit, so it varies somewhat, but it's a big deal because when it is in a sign, that tends to create the background vibe for a period of time, a period in history. And it's been in Capricorn. Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008, which you might remember is the year Obama got elected president, and our first Black president. Our, you know, some shifts and changes, but that was the beginning of the bigger transformation, which Pluto is the planet of transformation in our systems, our structures, our institutions, and how Pluto going through Capricorn, we had 8 years with Obama with, you know, struggles over, you know, whether he was going to get the health care through and all that. And then the backlash to, you know, to now we're going to have some white supremacy for a while because we couldn't live with too much change too fast, right? So all that's part of Pluto in Capricorn. And Pluto in Capricorn is a very conservative placement. It is focused on authority and authority figures, and it's also asking us to transform our relationship to authority. Outside authority and our inside authority, how we stand in authority ourselves. So that's been the theme since 2008. And now next year, for the first time in 240 whatever years, Pluto will go into Aquarius, and it'll go into Aquarius in March, and then retrograde back out of Aquarius into Capricorn, where we will be completing some of the work of transformation in our systems and structures and institutions. And then in January of 2024, just in time for the next presidential election, Pluto will go into Aquarius to stay for 19 years. So that Pluto and Aquarius energy is going to be a shift in the background of what it is we're collectively doing and dealing with. And it's going to shift in a more, well, it could be very much more progressive direction, because Aquarius is, again, it's about the future, and it's about rebelling against the status quo. It's about doing things differently. It's about thinking outside the box. New ideas, innovations, technology is a big theme. I think we're going to see us really reckoning with technology and the ethics of technology, and how we're going to be able to coexist with some of the technology. We've already created the monster out of the box. And there's going to be some reckoning with that, and really a deeper transformation in terms of this bigger Aquarian picture of seeing ourselves at the essence of leadership, and things being up to us much more than they ever have been. It's not anymore about us sitting around and waiting and, you know, chewing on our fingernails, waiting for somebody to fix things for us. It's really about us getting involved, being authentic, contributing what we have to contribute, and finding our place to do that. So that Pluto in Aquarius is really going to bring a shift in the feeling of the background vibe. We've also next year, also in March, Saturn's going to be going from Aquarius into Pisces. That's going to also contribute to a shift. So we're going to go from Saturn in Aquarius, where we're looking at systems and structures, and where we need to create them better, more in alignment with the modern day and the future and the technologies that we have. And Saturn is about foundations, it's about roots, it's about structures, and relates to our skeleton and our body. So it's the thing that holds everything together. And when that's in Aquarius, we're really looking at doing that differently, doing that in a way that's going to be more in alignment with future possibilities. And then that's going to be Saturn will be going into Pisces. So we're shifting more into, okay, how do our systems and structures need to be done in a way that support the collective, that support our interconnectedness, a bigger sense of compassion, and how we are all in this together. And really, well, I'll go a little more in depth on that as we go through as we go forward in time here. But anyway, the point is that the way it feels right now is part of our evolutionary process. And what it is sometimes it has to be really difficult, and it has to really have that feeling to it of, this could be really awful if I don't get up and do something. So that's what pushes us to evolve and to respond. And this election, this eclipse has really been like a wake-up call and a result. Full moons are a result. They're revealing the results of the efforts we've been putting in. And so we're really seeing some results. We're also seeing very much how far we have to go, but some really positive directions that we're seeing, and some hope for the future if we keep going on this track. And some I think some traction is, maybe that's the word I'm looking for, some traction for the continued evolution, and to really see that, yes, we are making a difference as we do this work, as we respond to the pressures that we are facing. And what could that look like? Of course, they're also saying that things next year could be very unpredictable in terms of the political situation. And that's also consistent with Pluto going into Aquarius. Aquarian energy is unpredictable. It is ruled by the planet Uranus. The modern ruler is Uranus, and that is the planet of lightning bolts and earthquakes. And so shake-up, change, unexpected developments. That's, of course, the energy of Uranus was really strong and potent with the eclipse this just a few days ago, and the November 8th eclipse. And that energy is also there when Pluto is in the sign of Aquarius. It doesn't mean things will always be unstable, but it means that we're working through the themes of how do we manage, how do we do and how do we respond to a world that maybe feels unstable, and how do we use that to create a better world, right? How do we work with that feeling of breakdown and turn it into breakthroughs, so that we can see, here are the creative new solutions to the old problems that we haven't been able to figure out. And that is dependent on this shift in consciousness. So that's a lot. I know that's a lot to digest. And, in summary, I would say that, I had a blog post back when, I think this was before 2020 or in 2020, when Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto were all conjunct. That was a really big deal, by the way, conjunct together. And in the year that we had a global pandemic and just big changes, but the energy of either break down or break through, and either transformation or annihilation. And sometimes we have to really have that feeling, that sense of how bad things could be, how bad things could go, to claim and to, you know, figure out how to respond to that. How do you, it's actually a gift. It's a gift to have this moment where you aren't sure how things are going to go, because in that moment you have the ability to really just do what all you know how to do. And maybe that's breathe, maybe it's set intentions, maybe it's pray, maybe it's, but having a vision, having, you know, affirming that, yes, please, this is the outcome I would like, even though I know I don't have control over it. And then it's actually a gift to be able to be in that space of the unknown, because even though we have that sense of unpredictability, we also have that sense of infinite possibility. And so that's where we are. And I think that we tentatively are taking advantage of that infinite possibility, and we can keep going on this track. And you are doing it. You're doing it in your life. You can do it in this moment, and can in any moment that you give yourself that support to take care of yourself, and ask yourself what you need, and ask yourself how you're going to be most effective. And that's, you know, it's really simple when you bring it down to the bare bones like that. And yet it can feel like a lot. I know it can feel like a lot. And so take it one step at a time. Baby steps are enough. It's enough to be moving in the direction of what you want. There is no requirement to be perfect, because it is a process. And we're in that process, and you're doing that process, and you're doing a great job. And I thank you. And I thank you for being here. And if you do need some support at this time, please check out my website, astrologyheals.com, because I have options for mini reading. If you just need some quick insight, I have options to work with me one-on-one. If you need some deeper support and seeing how your chart can help you you know, deal with whatever is coming up in your life, and how it can give you keys and clues to work with that, and to be most effective and your most empowered self. And so astrology is truly a tool that is supporting us to evolve, and supporting us to become our most authentic selves when we trust ourselves. And astrology can validate who we are and help us to trust that, and stay in alignment and on track with our own spiritual growth and evolutionary growth, and our way forward. So thank you so much for being here. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And thank you for your likes, and sharing with a friend if you know someone who might enjoy these videos. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you next time. Goodbye for now.